I sat at the dinner table that Sunday evening, fork halfway to my mouth, when my father cleared his throat. Mom smiled nervously beside him. My sister Emma smirked from across the table. Dad announced they were signing the $900,000 family house over to Emma completely. Just her. I would get nothing. They said she needed it more, that she would take care of them. My girlfriend Sarah squeezed my hand under the table. Everyone stared, waiting for my reaction. I smiled, just smiled. The confusion on their faces was almost worth it. Sarah pulled me aside after dinner, while my parents and Emma celebrated in the living room with champagne. She searched my face, probably looking for signs I was about to break down. I kissed her forehead and told her I was fine. Better than fine, actually. She thought I was in shock. The drive home was quiet. Sarah kept glancing at me like I might explode at any moment. When we got to my apartment, she finally asked what I was really thinking. I told her the truth. I had expected this. For months, I had seen the signs. Emma visiting more frequently. Hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. My parents suddenly asking weird questions about my plans for their future. 3 months earlier, I had overheard something that changed everything. I had stopped by the house unannounced to drop off some documents for Dad's business. The front door was unlocked, so I walked in. Voices came from the kitchen. Emma's voice, sweet as honey, telling our parents how worried she was about me. How I had called them burdens. How I had mentioned looking into nursing homes. How money had gone missing from the family business and only I had access. Every single word was a lie. I stood in the hallway, frozen, listening to my sister systematically destroy my reputation. Mom gasped. Dad's voice grew hard. Emma painted me as a selfish, cruel son, who saw them as obstacles. She was good. Really good. She had details, dates, fake conversations. She had been planning this for a long time. I backed out of the house silently and left. That night, I started documenting everything. I set up a simple recording app on my phone. I saved every text message Emma sent. I backed up emails. I started paying attention to the family business books, looking for any discrepancies that Emma might have created to frame me. Over the next 3 months, I collected evidence. Recordings of Emma lying to our parents about me. Text messages where she coordinated her stories. Emails showing she had been manipulating financial records. I had everything I needed to expose her. I just had to wait for the right moment. I figured once the house transferred, once her plan was complete, I could reveal everything. Show the pattern of fraud. Prove she had been lying. Maybe even reverse the transfer. Sarah listened to all of this, her eyes growing wider. She asked why I had not told her. I explained that I needed to be sure. I needed ironclad proof before I made accusations. Family was complicated. Without evidence, I would just look like a bitter son fighting over inheritance. The plan was solid. I had backup files on my laptop, my phone, and an external hard drive I kept at work. Multiple copies, multiple locations. Emma could not touch them. Or so I thought. 1 week after the house signing, I walked out to my car after a late meeting at work. The passenger window was smashed. Glass covered the seat. My laptop bag was gone. My work laptop was in my office, but my personal laptop had been in that bag, the one with all my evidence files. I immediately checked my phone. The recording app would not open. Someone had remotely wiped it. Every file, every backup, everything gone. I drove to my office in a panic. The external hard drive I kept in my desk drawer was missing. The lock on my office door had been picked. Nothing else was taken. Just the drive. I sat in my car in the parking garage, hands shaking, and my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just 8 words. Told you I was smarter, little brother. Emma knew. She had known the whole time I was gathering evidence. She had probably been watching me, tracking what I was doing. And now, every piece of proof I had collected was gone. Deleted. Stolen. Destroyed. I had nothing The house was legally transferred. My parents believed her lies completely, and I could not prove a single thing about her manipulation. Sarah found me still sitting in the car an hour later. I showed her the text. She held me while I processed the reality. Emma had won. Completely. Totally. And there was nothing I could do about it. I tried to salvage the situation. I really did. I started recreating my evidence from memory, writing down everything I remembered Emma saying, every lie she had told. I contacted my parents and asked to meet them privately. They agreed. Reluctantly. We met at a coffee shop. I laid out everything. I explained how Emma had been manipulating them for 2 years. How she had lied about me calling them burdens. How she had fabricated the nursing home story. How she had set me up to look like I stole from the family business. My mother stared at her coffee cup. My father's face was stone. When I finished, Dad shook his head slowly. He said Emma had warned them I would do this. That I would make wild accusations when I realized they had given her the house. That I would try to turn them against her. Every defense I tried to make sounded desperate without proof. Mom actually cried, telling me she never thought I would stoop this low. They left the coffee shop. I sat there alone, watching my parents walk away believing their son was a liar. I tried one more avenue. Uncle Jerry, my father's brother, had always been fair. He worked with Dad in the family business, a small but successful commercial property management company. I met Jerry for lunch and explained everything. He listened carefully, his weathered face thoughtful. When I finished, he sighed. He said he believed something was not right. The books had seemed off lately, but family matters should stay private. He could not get involved in a dispute between siblings. 2 days after I met with my parents, police knocked on my apartment door at 7 in the morning. 2 detectives showed their badges. They said my sister Emma had filed an official police report. She claimed I had embezzled $47,000 from the family business over the past year. I laughed. Actually laughed. It was so absurd. But the detectives were not smiling. They had documents, invoices that appeared to show me billing the company for fake consulting work, contracts with my signature authorizing payments to shell companies, checks made out to accounts in my name. I told them it was all fake, all fabricated. They asked if I had proof. I had nothing. They took me down to the station for questioning. A detective named Harris sat across from me in a gray room and laid out the evidence. It looked damning. Someone had done serious work, creating a paper trail. The numbers were specific. The dates were consistent. The signatures looked real. Harris asked about 3 witnesses willing to testify they had seen me stealing. One was Kyle, Emma's boyfriend. He worked part-time in the family business office. Another was Tracy, Emma's college roommate who had done temp work for us last summer. The third was a guy named Derek, an employee with a sketchy background who I had always suspected was unreliable. I realized Emma had been planning this for much longer than I thought. She had positioned her people in the business. She had created a network of false witnesses. She had built an entire fake case against me over months or maybe years. Harris said the district attorney was reviewing the case for possible felony charges. If convicted, I could face 3 to 5 years in prison. He advised me to get a lawyer. A good one. I called James Murphy, a criminal defense attorney someone from work had recommended. He agreed to take my case for a $15,000 retainer. I put it on credit cards. I did not have $15,000 just sitting around. My life started crumbling faster after that. My employer, a mid-sized marketing firm where I had worked for 6 years, put me on administrative leave pending the investigation. They said it was policy. They were very sorry. I understood. But everyone at work started treating me differently. Colleagues avoided eye contact in the hallway. Lunch invitations stopped. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone under criminal investigation. Sarah tried to be supportive. She really did. But her parents put pressure on her. They did not want their daughter dating someone facing prison time. Someone accused of stealing from his own family. Sarah cried when she broke up with me. She said she loved me but could not handle the situation. She needed to think about her future. I understood. I told her it was okay. She left my apartment, and I sat on the couch in the dark for 3 hours. My parents called once. My mother. She asked how I could have stolen from our own family, how I could have betrayed their trust so completely. I tried to explain it was all lies. She said she wanted to believe me, but the evidence was overwhelming. She hung up. My father would not speak to me at all. Emma played her role perfectly. She posted on social media about how painful it was to report family to the police, but how she had to do what was right, how she just wanted our family to heal. People commented with support. Everyone felt sorry for her. James Murphy called me into his office 2 weeks after I hired him. He had been investigating the case, reviewing the evidence. He found something disturbing. Emma had not just taken the house. 3 months ago, she had obtained power of attorney over our parents, full legal authority to make financial decisions on their behalf. Murphy showed me bank records he had subpoenaed. Emma had transferred our parents' retirement savings, $80,000, into a joint account with herself. She had changed the beneficiary on Dad's life insurance policy from Mom to herself. The policy was worth $250,000. She had consolidated control of every asset our parents owned. I asked if we could do anything about it. Murphy said technically, no. Our parents had signed the power of attorney voluntarily. They had authorized the account changes. Unless we could prove coercion or undue influence, the transfers were legal. But he also said something else. This pattern looked like financial elder abuse. If I could prove Emma had manipulated our parents specifically to gain control of their assets, we might have a case. But I would need evidence. Real evidence. Not just my word against hers. I had no evidence. Emma had made sure of that. The preliminary hearing for the embezzlement charges was scheduled for 3 weeks out. Murphy said the case against me looked bad. Really bad. The prosecution had documents, witnesses, and a clear motive. They would argue I stole from the business because I was angry about not getting the house. They would say I was retaliating against my family. I was facing prison. I had lost my job, my girlfriend, my family, and my reputation. Emma had the house, control of our parents' money, and everyone's sympathy. She had won everything, and I had lost everything. I sat in my apartment that night, eating cold pizza and staring at my phone. The criminal charges, the isolation, the betrayal. How had it come to this? How had my sister managed to destroy my entire life so completely? I did not know it yet, but things were about to get much worse. I could not afford Murphy much longer. The legal bills were mounting. I was living off credit cards and the little savings I had left. The preliminary hearing was 2 weeks away. I spent my days searching for any evidence I could use, any angle I had missed. Uncle Jerry called me on a Tuesday afternoon. His voice was low, cautious. He said he had been looking at the business books more carefully. Something was wrong. Numbers did not match up from before Emma started making changes. Deposits were off. Expense reports looked altered. But he could not put his finger on exactly what had been changed, or when. I thanked him and started digging into whatever business records I could still access online. I found something interesting. Emma's name appeared on several online gambling sites. Public records showed she had accounts with at least 4 different platforms. I spent 2 days tracking down paper trails through public databases and court records. Emma had gambling debts, serious gambling debts. Over 18 months, she had lost $65,000 on sports betting and online poker. She had borrowed money from sources that were definitely not banks. This was it. This was her motive. She needed the house and our parents' money to pay off gambling debts. If I could prove this to our parents, maybe they would finally see the truth. I called Emma and asked to meet. She agreed, sounding amused. We met at a park near her apartment. I laid out what I had found. The gambling sites. The debt records. I told her I would show our parents unless she dropped the criminal charges against me. Emma laughed. She actually threw her head back and laughed. She said our parents would never believe me. I was the accused thief, the family pariah. She was the devoted daughter. Even if I had proof of her gambling, she would just say I fabricated it. Who would our parents believe? I told her I would go public, post everything online, let everyone see what she really was. She stopped laughing. Her face went cold. She leaned close and whispered that I should be very careful, that I was playing a dangerous game. Then she walked away. The next day, I was followed. A black SUV with tinted windows stayed 3 cars behind me everywhere I went. At first I thought I was paranoid. Then the SUV pulled into the parking garage behind me when I went to the grocery store. 2 large men got out. They were not police. One was bald with tattoos covering his arms. The other wore an expensive suit but had the eyes of someone who had seen violence. They cornered me between cars. The bald one said they worked for Tony Marchetti. Emma owed Tony $80,000. Right now. Today. No more delays. Tony was done being patient. I said I was not Emma. They knew that. But Emma had told Tony all about her family, about how her brother was loaded, about how I had stolen from the family business and had money hidden away. Tony's men figured family should help family. They wanted me to pay Emma's debt. I told them I had no money. That Emma lied about everything. The suited one smiled without humor. He said they knew where I lived. They knew where my parents lived. They knew everywhere I went. I had 1 week to come up with $80,000 or things would get ugly. They left. I stood there shaking between cars, processing what had just happened. Emma had not only framed me for embezzlement, she had painted a target on my back for her loan sharks. If I did not pay, they would hurt me, maybe hurt my parents. And if I did somehow pay, Emma's debt would be cleared while I faced criminal charges. She had set up a perfect trap. Either way, she won. I could not go to the police. They already thought I was a criminal. Telling them about loan sharks would just make me look more desperate. Plus, Tony's men had made it clear what happened to people who talked. I had $0 to pay them. Less than 0, actually, since I was drowning in legal fees. 1 week. I had 1 week to somehow come up with money I did not have to pay off my sister's debt to dangerous criminals. The situation spiraled further 3 days later. Emma listed the family house for sale. The house she had just gotten. $900,000 property, listed for $875,000. A quick sale price. She found buyers within 5 days. A young couple expecting their first child, thrilled to get such a nice house below market value. Closing scheduled for 30 days. I drove past the house one evening and saw my parents packing boxes through the window. They looked confused, stressed. I wanted to help, but knew they would not let me near them. 2 days later, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was shaky but trying to sound cheerful. She said they were moving. Emma had bought them a beautiful apartment in a wonderful building. They were excited. It would be easier to maintain than the big house. Perfect for their age. I asked what building. Mom said it was called Riverside Estates. Very nice area. Emma was handling everything. After we hung up, I looked up Riverside Estates online. It was indeed a beautiful building. Upscale. Secure. Units there sold for between $300,000 and $500,000. I checked property records. No recent purchases under Emma's name. No new listings showing my parents as buyers. Emma had not bought them anything. I tried to call my parents back and warn them. Dad answered. I started to explain that Emma had not actually purchased an apartment. That they needed to check the property records. That this was another lie. Dad interrupted. He said I needed to stop. That my harassment was getting out of control. That Emma had proof I was becoming unstable. He hung up. The next day, a sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. He handed me paperwork. My parents had filed for a restraining order against me. Temporary order granted. I had to stay 100 yards away from them. No contact of any kind. Phone, email, text, nothing. The order cited my threatening phone calls and harassment as reasons. Emma had convinced them I was dangerous. The judge had believed her evidence and granted the order immediately. Murphy called me that evening. He said the restraining order made my criminal case look much worse. The prosecution would use it as evidence of my obsessive and dangerous behavior. It made the embezzlement charges more credible. I looked like someone who would absolutely retaliate against family. I asked about the apartment situation. About warning my parents they were about to be homeless. Murphy said I could not contact them without violating the restraining order. If I violated it, I would go to jail immediately. My hands were completely tied. The house closing was in 3 weeks. Emma would get $875,000. My parents would be evicted with nowhere to go. I was legally prevented from helping them. Tony's men wanted $80,000 in 4 days. I was facing prison. And everyone believed Emma was the victim. I had hit absolute bottom. But I did not know that things could still get worse. Much worse. The 30 days passed faster than I wanted. I watched from a distance, careful not to violate the restraining order. I saw the moving truck pull up to my parents' house. I saw them loading their life into cardboard boxes. They looked smaller somehow, older, confused. But they trusted Emma. She had promised them a beautiful new apartment. Tony's men found me again on Friday. The deadline had passed. I had nothing to give them. The bald one hit me hard in the stomach. I doubled over, between 2 dumpsters, in an alley, behind a restaurant. The suited one explained this was just a warning. They would be back. Next time would be worse. If I did not get them their money by next Friday, my parents would pay instead. They left me there. I had a broken rib, a black eye, and a split lip. I could barely breathe. I drove myself to an urgent care clinic where they taped my ribs and gave me pain medication I could not afford. Everything hurt. My body, my reputation, my heart. I had no way to stop what was coming. The day finally arrived when Emma took my parents to see their new apartment. I knew because Uncle Jerry texted me. He had heard from a neighbor who had helped Mom pack. They were excited despite everything. Emma had told them it was a surprise, that they would love their new home. Riverside Estates sat in a nice part of town near the river. Beautiful brick building with a security gate and a doorman. Professional landscaping. Clean sidewalks. The kind of place where 70-year-olds could feel safe and comfortable. My parents arrived with Emma in her car. The moving truck followed behind, packed with everything they owned. Furniture from 40 years of marriage. Photo albums. Dad's collection of old records. Mom's china that her mother had given her. Their entire life in boxes. Emma walked them to the front entrance with a big smile. A security guard sat at a desk in the lobby. Professional-looking guy, probably mid-50s, named Frank, according to his name tag. Emma approached confidently. She said these were the new residents, Robert and Caroline Thompson, here for Unit 412. Frank checked his computer. His expression changed. He said he was sorry, but there was no reservation or lease for that name, Emma insisted. She pulled out papers from her purse. Frank looked at them carefully. He shook his head. Unit 412 belonged to someone else. Had belonged to them for 6 months. These papers were not legitimate. Emma's face went white. She made phone calls, her voice getting higher and louder. Frank called the building manager. The manager came down, looked at Emma's papers, and confirmed they were forged. There was no record of Emma purchasing or leasing anything in the building. The manager said if Emma did not leave, he would call the police for attempted fraud. My parents stood in the lobby with all their possessions in a truck outside. They had no house to return to. It had sold. New owners were moving in tomorrow. They stared at Emma, realization slowly dawning on their faces. Emma panicked. She said there must be a mistake. Wrong building, different address. She was confused. She would fix this. She ran to her car and drove away fast. Just left them there. Left her parents standing in the lobby of Riverside Estates with nowhere to go. Mom tried calling Emma, straight to voicemail. Dad tried. Voicemail. They stood there, 68 and 65 years old, homeless. Frank felt bad for them. He called Uncle Jerry, whose number Mom had. Jerry came and picked them up. He put them in a motel for the night. The moving truck driver asked where to unload. Jerry told him to take everything to a storage facility. He paid for the first month. I heard all this from Jerry later that day. He called me even though he knew about the restraining order. He was furious. He said our parents were destroyed. They finally understood Emma had lied to them. She had taken everything and abandoned them. I asked if I could see them. Jerry said not yet. The restraining order was still active. If I showed up, I would be arrested. My parents would have to file to dismiss it. Right now, they were too shocked and humiliated to do anything. The news spread fast. Family members heard. Neighbors heard. Everyone was looking for Emma. She had vanished. Phone off. Apartment empty. She had taken the $875,000 from the house sale and disappeared. But the story people heard was twisted. They said the family fighting had driven Emma away. That Nelson's accusations and harassment had made her flee. That now the elderly parents were suffering because their children could not get along. I was blamed. Even in Emma's absence, she had poisoned everything so thoroughly that I was still the villain. I wanted to find Emma, make her fix what she had done. I drove to her apartment, even though I knew it was risky. She had cleared out completely. Furniture gone. Closets empty. No forwarding address. A neighbor saw me looking around. She called the police. They arrived and found me at Emma's door. They also checked the GPS on their system and realized my parents had been staying temporarily at Emma's place 2 days ago before the apartment viewing. That meant I had been within the restraining order's prohibited distance. They arrested me for violating the restraining order, threw me in county jail. Bail set at $10,000. I could not pay it. My credit cards were maxed. I had nothing left. I sat in a cell while my parents were homeless. While Emma was gone with their money, while Tony's men were probably looking for me, while criminal charges hung over my head. I had hit rock bottom and somehow fallen through to a deeper bottom below that. Murphy visited me in jail. He looked tired. He said this violation made everything worse. The prosecution would use it to prove I was obsessed and dangerous. It made the embezzlement charges more believable. It made me look guilty of everything Emma had accused me of. My bail hearing was in 2 days. Murphy did not think I would get out. I had violated a court order. I was a flight risk with nothing keeping me in town. The judge would probably deny bail or set it impossibly high. I asked about my parents. Murphy said Jerry was taking care of them. They were staying at a cheap motel. Jerry was paying because they had no money left. Emma had taken everything. That night in jail, I lay on a thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. I thought about how completely Emma had destroyed everything. My life. My parents' life. Our family. She had taken it all apart piece by piece with lies and manipulation, and she had gotten away with it. Or so I thought. Because while I was sitting in that cell, something was happening that would change everything. I spent 3 days in jail before my bail hearing. 3 days in an orange jumpsuit sharing a cell with a guy who had stolen copper wire from construction sites. 3 days thinking about how thoroughly Emma had won. Murphy visited again on day 2. He looked different, less tired, almost excited. He said something had happened, something unexpected. He could not give me details yet, but told me to hang on. Things might be changing. I did not dare hope. Hope had been beaten out of me over the past months. Meanwhile, Uncle Jerry kept me updated through Murphy about my parents. They were living in that motel, surviving on money Jerry lent them. They were broken, humiliated, too ashamed to face anyone. They had stopped answering calls from friends who wanted to know what happened. They just sat in that motel room, watching television and trying to process how their daughter had destroyed them. What I did not know, what nobody knew, was that while I sat in jail, Tony Marchetti's men had been tracking Emma. They were very good at finding people who owed money. They found her 3 states away at a casino in Louisiana. She was at a poker table, still gambling, still feeding her addiction. She had already lost $100,000 of the house money. She had $775,000 left, and she was betting large, trying to win back what she had lost. Trying to chase her losses like every gambler who could not stop. Tony's men grabbed her outside the casino. They brought her back home. Drove her straight to Tony's office, which was the back room of a bar he owned. Tony Marchetti was a businessman. Not a nice businessman, but a businessman. He ran loan operations, some light extortion, probably some other things I did not want to know about. He had rules, his own code, and he really hated being played for a fool. Emma tried to lie to him. Said she did not have his money. Said she had expenses. Said Nelson had stolen from her. Tony's men went through her purse while she talked. They found bank statements showing the house sale, showing the $775,000 sitting in her account. Tony realized Emma had been playing him. She had the money all along. She had just been stalling, gambling, trying to win more before she paid him. She had lied to him, while betting away money she owed him. Tony did not like that, not at all. What happened next changed everything. Tony told Emma she had two choices. Pay him his $80,000 plus $20,000 in late fees and interest right now, or go to prison for fraud. Because Tony had been doing some research. He knew about the house, about the parents, about the embezzlement claims against me, and he smelled something rotten. Tony's mother had been scammed by a relative when she was older. Someone had taken her savings and left her with nothing. Tony still hated that person. He had a thing about people who hurt their own elderly parents. Even criminals had standards. So Tony made Emma an offer. Confess everything on video. Tell the truth about what she had done to me, to our parents, to the family. Give him evidence he could turn over to the authorities, or he would make sure she never gambled again. And he would not be polite about it. Emma, scared and cornered, broke down. She confessed everything. How she had been lying to our parents for 2 years. How she had manipulated them to get the house. How she had fabricated evidence against me. How she had forged documents about the apartment. How she had stolen our parents' retirement money. How she had planned to take the house money and disappear to Vegas. Tony recorded all of it, every word. Crystal clear video of Emma admitting to fraud, elder abuse, false police reports, forgery, everything. Then Tony took his $80,000, plus his $20,000 fee, directly from Emma's account. $100,000 total. He kept the video. And he called the police and the district attorney. An anonymous tip, they said later. A concerned citizen. Someone sent them a video file with detailed confession. Someone gave them bank records showing the money trail. Someone handed them everything they needed to prosecute Emma on a silver platter. The DA moved fast. They verified the video. They checked the bank records. They investigated and confirmed every detail Emma had confessed. Within 24 hours, they dropped all charges against me, dismissed the embezzlement case, vacated the restraining order, issued a warrant for Emma's arrest. Murphy came to the jail grinning. He told me everything. The charges were gone. I was free. My record would be expunged. The DA was formally apologizing for the wrongful prosecution. They released me that afternoon. I walked out of county jail into sunlight, barely believing it was real. Murphy drove me home and showed me copies of everything. Emma's video confession, the DA's statement, the arrest warrant. I asked how this happened. Murphy said someone with connections had gotten involved. Someone who understood what Emma had done and decided to help. He did not know who. I had a pretty good guess. Tony Marchetti was a criminal, but apparently even criminals had lines they would not cross. The news spread immediately. My name was cleared. The truth was out. Emma was exposed as a liar and a fraud. Everything I had said was proven true. But my life was still a mess. I had lost my job permanently. My reputation was destroyed in my community. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. My girlfriend was gone. And worst of all, my parents still did not know the truth. They were sitting in that motel, believing their family had been torn apart by fighting, believing Emma had run away because of harassment. I needed to see them, needed to tell them what happened, but I was afraid they would still not believe me, afraid the damage was too deep to repair. Then something else happened, something I did not expect. My parents tried to contact Emma one more time. They were desperate, confused, needing answers. Mom called Emma's phone. By some miracle, Emma answered. She was crying. She said Tony's men had kidnapped her and forced a fake confession. She claimed I had hired criminals to threaten her. She said I was more dangerous than anyone realized. She begged Mom to wire her money so she could escape. My parents, terrified and confused, did it. They borrowed $3,000 from Uncle Jerry. The last bit of money they could scrape together. They wired it to Emma to save her. The police tracked that wire transfer. It led them right to Emma at a bus station trying to flee with $795,000 cash in duffel bags. The money from the house sale, minus what Tony took, minus the $100,000 she had gambled. They arrested her there. Charged her with elder financial abuse, fraud, filing false police reports, forgery, and embezzlement. Multiple felonies. She was looking at serious prison time. But my parents still did not know. They thought they had just helped their daughter escape danger. They thought Nelson was behind everything. The lies went so deep that even with Emma arrested, even with proof of her crimes, my parents were still poisoned against me. I was free, but my family was still broken. Emma was caught, but the damage was done. I had won legally but lost everything that mattered. I sat in my empty apartment that night, free but alone, and wondered if anything could ever be fixed. If my parents would ever believe me. If our family could ever heal. The answer came sooner than I expected, but not in the way I imagined. I had to see my parents. I did not care if they wanted to see me or not. They needed to know the truth from me. Not from police reports or news articles. They needed to hear it from their son. I drove to the motel where Uncle Jerry said they were staying. A run-down place on the edge of town with flickering neon signs and cracked parking lot pavement. It broke my heart, thinking about them living there. My parents, who had owned a beautiful house for 40 years, who had raised 2 children and built a life, now stuck in a cheap motel room because their daughter had destroyed everything. I knocked on the door of room 117. Dad opened it. His face went hard when he saw me. He started to say something about the restraining order. I told him it had been dismissed, that all the charges against me had been dropped, that I needed 5 minutes to explain. Mom appeared behind him. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the past month. She said, "They knew I was free. The police had called." But that did not change what happened. That did not bring Emma back. I asked if I could come in. Dad reluctantly stepped aside. The motel room was tiny. 2 double beds, a small table, a bathroom with yellowing tiles. Their entire life reduced to this. I pulled papers from my bag. Everything Murphy had given me. Court documents clearing my name. Police reports on Emma's arrest. The DA's statement about the fabricated evidence. Bank records showing Emma's gambling debts. Tony Marchetti's official statement to police about Emma's confession. I laid it all on the table. Every piece of evidence. Every document. I told them to read it. All of it. Take their time. They read in silence for 20 minutes. I watched their faces change. Confusion. Disbelief. Horror. Denial. Then finally, terrible understanding. I walked them through everything chronologically. How Emma had been lying about me for 2 years. Every story she told them was fabricated. I never called them burdens. Never mentioned nursing homes. Never stole from the family business. Every single thing was a lie designed to turn them against me so she could take the house. I showed them how Emma had manipulated the business records to frame me. How she had positioned her boyfriend and friends as fake witnesses. How she had stolen their retirement savings under the cover of power of attorney. How she had changed Dad's life insurance beneficiary to herself. How she had planned to take the house money and abandon them. I showed them the bank records of her gambling debts. $65,000 lost over 18 months. The loan sharks. The dangerous people she owed money to. I showed them the police report about Riverside Estates. How Emma had forged documents for an apartment that did not exist. How she had intended to take all their money and disappear, leaving them homeless. Mom started crying. Not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs. Dad just stared at the papers, his hands shaking. He looked at me and said he failed. He said he failed as a father. He believed lies over his own son. He got a restraining order against his boy. He had been so completely fooled. Mom kept saying she was sorry, over and over. How could they have been so blind? How could they have trusted Emma and doubted me? What kind of parents were they? I told them Emma was a master manipulator. She had played them perfectly. She knew exactly what buttons to push, what stories would work, how to isolate me, and make herself look innocent. This was not their fault. She was that good. But I had one more thing to show them. The most important thing. I pulled out a property deed from my bag. An apartment at Riverside Estates. Unit 517. Purchased 8 months ago, under my name. I showed them photos on my phone. A beautiful 2-bedroom apartment with river views, updated kitchen, accessible bathroom with safety bars, perfect for 2 people in their late 60s who needed something manageable but comfortable. I told them I bought it 8 months ago. I had been saving for years. I used everything I had. I bought it as an investment property at first. Then as I watched Emma manipulating them, as I saw her plans forming, I realized they would need somewhere to go. I could not stop Emma legally. Our parents had the right to make their own choices about the house, but I could prepare a safety net. I spent months renovating that apartment. New floors, fresh paint, modern appliances. I made it perfect for them. I furnished it simply but comfortably. Everything they would need, everything they would want. I picked a building with medical services on site, with a community room where they could meet other residents, with security so they would feel safe. I was going to surprise them with it. Show them they always had a place with me, that their son had their backs, no matter what. Then Emma's schemes accelerated. The house sold fast. The fake apartment at Riverside Estates happened. Everything collapsed before I could tell them about the real apartment. Dad asked why Emma mentioned Riverside Estates at all. I explained. Emma somehow discovered I had bought a unit there. Maybe she saw paperwork. Maybe she overheard me talking to Uncle Jerry about it. She tried to take credit for it. She forged documents claiming she had provided Unit 412. Some random unit she picked. She was going to let them think she bought it, when actually I had. When they showed up and the security guard blocked them, her lie fell apart. But the apartment was real. Unit 517. 2 floors up from the fake unit, Emma claimed. It was theirs. I had the keys right here. We could go see it right now if they wanted. Mom could not speak. She just held my face in her hands and cried. Dad pulled me into a hug and I felt his shoulders shake. These people had raised me. They had made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But Emma had poisoned them so systematically that they had not stood a chance. We talked for 2 hours. They asked questions. I answered everything honestly. The pain, the fear, the loneliness of being accused and having nobody believe me, the terror of facing prison, the heartbreak of losing my girlfriend and my job and my reputation. I also told them I understood. I was hurt. Yes, deeply hurt. But I knew Emma had been masterful. She had played on their fears about aging, about being burdens, about their future. She had made them believe I did not care while she was the devoted daughter. It was calculated and cruel, and they were victims too. Dad said they would never forgive themselves. How could they? They had called me a thief, filed a restraining order, let me go to jail, watched me suffer, while believing Emma's lies. Their own son. How could they ever make that right? I told them we would figure it out together. We could not change the past. We could only move forward. Then Dad grabbed his chest. His face went gray. He could not breathe right. Mom screamed. I called 911. Ambulance came fast. They took Dad to the emergency room. Mom and I followed in my car. The doctors said it was a severe panic attack triggered by stress. Not a heart attack, but his heart was under strain. They wanted to keep him overnight for observation. They said he needed to avoid stress, that his blood pressure was dangerously high, that at his age, this kind of emotional shock could be very dangerous. Uncle Jerry met us at the hospital. Some other family members came too. aunts and uncles who had heard pieces of the story. Everyone was trying to understand what happened. How Emma had fooled everyone so completely. Emma called from jail. Her one allowed phone call. She asked to speak to Mom. The hospital let Mom take the call in a private room. I do not know exactly what Emma said, but when Mom came out, her face was like stone. She said Emma tried to claim she was protecting them from me, still manipulating, still lying, even from jail. Mom looked at Emma's number on her phone. She said 6 words I will never forget. "You are not my daughter anymore." Then she blocked the number. The district attorney wanted my parents to testify against Emma. The trial was being expedited. Emma's lawyer was trying to make a deal, claiming diminished capacity, mental health issues, gambling addiction, trying to paint her as a victim of her own compulsions. There was a hearing scheduled for next week. If Emma's lawyer could make her seem sympathetic, she might get reduced charges, probation instead of prison. Court-mandated therapy instead of real consequences. The money was still locked up in evidence. $795,000. It might not be returned for months while the case played out. The house sale might not be reversible since the buyers were innocent parties who paid fair value. My parents were emotionally destroyed. Dad was in the hospital. Mom looked like a ghost. Our family was shattered, even though the truth was finally out. I had been vindicated legally, but the cost was everything that mattered. My job was gone. My reputation would take years to rebuild. My relationship with my parents was damaged, maybe permanently. Emma had destroyed so much that even her arrest felt hollow. I sat in the hospital cafeteria at midnight, drinking bad coffee, wondering if any of this could ever really be fixed. If winning against Emma meant anything when so much had been lost along the way, but I still had one card to play. One final move that Emma did not see coming. And it would make all the difference. The preliminary hearing was packed. Family members, news reporters, people from the community who had heard about the case. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to Emma Thompson, the daughter who betrayed her entire family. Emma sat at the defense table in an orange jail jumpsuit. Her lawyer, a public defender named Patricia Graham, looked tired. She was going to argue Emma had a gambling addiction, a recognized disease, and needed treatment, not punishment. She had character witnesses ready to testify. Emma was normally kind and loving, but the addiction made her act out. The district attorney called me as the first witness. I walked to the stand and swore to tell the truth. The DA, a sharp woman named Helen Chen, asked me to describe the timeline of Emma's actions. I did, calmly, methodically. 2 years of systematic lies to isolate me from my parents. 6 months of fabricating evidence to frame me for embezzlement. The manipulation to get the house. The theft of retirement funds. The fake apartment. The abandonment of our elderly parents. I explained how it was not impulsive. Not a desperate act by someone in the grip of addiction. It was calculated, planned, premeditated over years. Emma had positioned false witnesses, created fake documents, built an entire fraudulent case against me. That took planning, intelligence, cold manipulation. The defense tried to suggest Emma's addiction clouded her judgment. I pointed out she was clear-headed enough to hack my phone, steal my laptop, erase all my evidence, and text me about being smarter than me. That was not addiction, that was cruelty. The DA presented Tony Marchetti's video. The courtroom watched Emma confess to everything. Her voice, her face, her words. Admitting she lied. Admitting she stole. Admitting she planned to abandon our parents. No coercion visible, just truth finally coming out. The defense tried to claim the video was obtained under duress. Marchetti's statement, given to police, explained he simply asked Emma to tell the truth, and she did. He had not threatened her. He had given her a choice: confess or face consequences from law enforcement. She chose confession. Then my parents testified. That was the most powerful part. Mom took the stand first. She described in detail how Emma had spent 2 years telling them stories about me. How Nelson called them burdens. How Nelson wanted to put them in a home. How Nelson was stealing from the business. Every story was a complete fabrication, but Emma told them with such conviction, such detail, such emotion, that they believed every word. Mom described signing over the house, how Emma convinced them it was the right choice, how she promised to care for them, how they trusted their daughter completely. Then Mom described the aftermath, Emma selling the house immediately. The fake apartment at Riverside Estates. Standing in that lobby, with all their possessions, and nowhere to go. Emma driving away and abandoning them, the motel, the fear, the confusion. The final betrayal when Emma called from jail still lying, asking for more money. Mom cried on the stand. Real tears, genuine heartbreak. She said Emma had not just stolen money. She had stolen their sense of security, their trust, their faith in family. She had made them doubt their own son and destroyed their family from the inside. Dad testified next. His voice was rough, emotional. He described 43 years of marriage to my mother, raising 2 children, building a business, buying that house, and making it a home. All of it gone because his daughter manipulated and lied and stole. Dad talked about the restraining order. How shameful he felt now. How he had legally prevented his innocent son from helping, while the guilty daughter destroyed everything. He said the stress had put him in the hospital. That he might never fully trust anyone again. That Emma had broken something fundamental in him. The defense tried to paint Dad as bitter. Dad looked at Emma and said he was not bitter. He was heartbroken. There was a difference. Uncle Jerry testified about the business records, how Emma had expertly altered invoices, contracts, and financial statements to frame me. How she had done it over months, carefully building a false case. How sophisticated and deliberate the fraud was. Not the impulsive act of an addict, but the methodical work of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. 3 of Emma's fake witnesses were called. Kyle, Emma's boyfriend, admitted under oath that Emma asked him to lie, that he never saw me steal anything, that she promised to pay him $5,000 if he testified against me. Tracy, the college roommate, admitted the same. She was paid $3,000. Derek, the sketchy employee, tried to maintain his lie but cracked under questioning and admitted Emma gave him $10,000 to claim he saw me forge Dad's signature. Witness, tampering, bribery. More charges added to Emma's growing list. Emma's lawyer made her final argument. Gambling addiction was real. Emma needed help. Sending her to prison would not solve anything. She should get probation, mandatory therapy, community service. She could make restitution over time. She was still young. She could change. The DA countered that Emma had shown zero remorse until caught. That she lied to the loan shark, to police, to her family, and even from jail. That she tried to extract more money, even after arrest. That she showed no signs of accepting responsibility. That she was a danger to anyone who trusted her. The judge, a gray-haired man named Thomas Werner, listened to everything. He reviewed the evidence. He asked Emma directly if she had anything to say. Emma stood. She tried one more manipulation. She said she was sorry, that she loved her family, that the gambling had taken over her life, that she made terrible mistakes but she was still their daughter. Their sister. She asked for mercy. Judge Werner was silent for a long moment. Then he denied bail completely. He called Emma's actions calculated elder abuse and systematic fraud. He noted the complete lack of genuine remorse. He said she would be held for trial without bail. Trial was set for 3 months out. Emma's face showed shock. She actually expected sympathy. Expected the system to give her another chance. She had manipulated everyone else so completely that she thought she could manipulate a judge too. The DA moved quickly to recover the money. The $795,000 was seized as evidence, but would be returned to my parents once the trial concluded. The process would take time, but the money was coming back to them. My lawyer filed a motion to void the house sale. The argument was simple. The sale was procured through fraud and elder abuse. My parents did not sell willingly. They were manipulated by someone who had stolen their power of attorney. The buyers were sympathetic. They had not known the situation. They agreed to reverse the sale if they got their money back. The court ordered the sale voided. The house would return to my parents. They would have to return the $875,000 to the buyers. But that was okay. Between the recovered $795,000 in the house, my parents would be stable again. But my parents made a decision. They did not want the house anymore. Too many memories. Too much pain. They decided to sell it properly this time. Put it on the market themselves. Use the money for their future. Start fresh. Which brought us to Riverside Estates, to Unit 517, to the apartment I had bought for them 8 months ago. The security guard, Frank, was working the day I brought my parents to see their new home. He recognized them from the day Emma tried to scam her way in with fake documents for Unit 412. He smiled when he saw them. He said he remembered them. Said he felt terrible about what happened that day. Then he said something that made my parents cry again. He said I had talked about them all the time while renovating Unit 517. How much I loved them, how I wanted everything perfect for them. Frank said it was clear I was a good son. We took the elevator to the 5th floor. I unlocked the door to Unit 517. My parents walked in slowly. It was beautiful. Hardwood floors, big windows with river views, updated kitchen with easy-to-use appliances, a bathroom with safety bars, and a walk-in shower. 2 bedrooms, each furnished simply but comfortably. A living room with a couch and television. Bookshelves. Photos I had framed of our family from better times. I had even included small touches. Mom's favorite kind of tea in the kitchen, Dad's preferred brand of coffee, soft blankets on the beds, everything they needed to feel at home immediately. Mom walked through every room, touching things gently. Dad stood at the window looking at the river. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, Dad turned to me. He asked how I could do this, how I could spend everything I had to buy them a home, after they had treated me so badly. After they believed Emma over me. After they filed a restraining order. After everything, I told him the truth. Because they were my parents. Because family was not about being perfect. It was about being there when things got hard. I had seen Emma's manipulation coming for months. I could not stop it legally. Our parents had the right to make their own choices. But I could prepare for the fallout. I could make sure they had somewhere safe to land. I had lost my job, my girlfriend, my reputation, most of my savings, but I had protected them, and that mattered more than anything else. Mom asked what the apartment cost. I told her $270,000. It was a good deal. I had been saving for years. Uncle Jerry had helped me with part of the down payment as an investment. I had been making payments ever since. The renovations cost another $30,000. My entire savings and more. But it was worth it. Dad started crying, actually crying. I had not seen my father cry since his own father died when I was 12. He said he did not deserve a son like me. Mom said the same thing. How could they ever repay this? How could they ever make up for what they had done? I told them there was nothing to repay. This was not a transaction. This was family. Real family. The kind Emma never understood. We moved them in over the next week. Uncle Jerry helped. We got their belongings out of storage, set up their furniture, made the place feel like home. They joined the building's activities, met neighbors, started to rebuild their lives. The trial happened 3 months later. Emma was convicted on multiple counts: elder financial abuse, fraud, false police reports, forgery, embezzlement, witness tampering. The judge sentenced her to 6 years in federal prison. Full restitution ordered. All rights to any family assets permanently terminated. Emma showed no emotion when the sentence was read. She just stared straight ahead. My parents attended the sentencing but did not speak to her. They were done. Emma had made her choices. Now she would live with the consequences. My life slowly came back together. I got a new job at a better firm. A marketing director position with a company that knew my story and believed in second chances. My reputation rebuilt gradually as people learned the truth. Old friends reached out and apologized for doubting me. Sarah, my ex-girlfriend, Tried to reconnect 6 months later. She said she was sorry for not believing in me, for leaving when things got hard. She wanted another chance. I thanked her for the apology but declined. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. I needed to move forward, not backward. I met someone new eventually. A woman named Lauren, who worked in graphic design. She knew my story before our first date. She said it showed character, that I had protected my family even when they hurt me. We took things slow, built something real based on honesty. My parents and I had dinner together every Sunday at their apartment. We talked honestly, about the past, about the pain, about how to rebuild trust. They went to therapy to process the betrayal and guilt. I went too, working through the trauma of being falsely accused and abandoned. Frank, the security guard, became a friend. He would chat with my parents when they came through the lobby. He told them stories about me renovating the apartment, how particular I was about every detail, how I wanted everything perfect for them. Those stories meant everything to my parents. The Riverside Estates community embraced them. They joined the book club. Dad started playing chess with other residents. Mom took a watercolor painting class. They made friends, built a new life, found peace. The house sold properly for $890,000. Combined with the recovered money from Emma, my parents had their financial security back. They insisted on repaying my legal fees. $30,000. I tried to refuse, but they were adamant. It was important to them. They also set up a trust fund to protect their money, named me as trustee, made sure everything was legally protected so nobody could ever manipulate them again. They learned painful lessons, but they learned them well. 1 year after Emma's sentencing, we had dinner at my parents' apartment. Just the three of us. We looked at old photos, talked about memories. We mentioned Emma without anger. Just sadness. Sadness for what she could have been. For the sister and daughter she chose not to be. Dad said something that stuck with me. He said losing the house was the best thing that ever happened to them. Not because of the house itself, but because it revealed the truth. It showed them who Emma really was. And it showed them who I really was. They lost a daughter but found their son. I realized the ordeal, as painful as it was, had revealed true character, Emma's cruelty and manipulation, my parents' capacity for growth and change, my own ability to forgive and protect family even when it cost me everything. We were a smaller family now, but we were stronger, more honest, more real. When my parents signed that house over to my sister, leaving me nothing, I smiled because I knew something they did not. Real family was not about inheritances or possessions. It was about who stood by you when everything fell apart. I lost a house and gained clarity. My parents lost their daughter but found their son. And in the end, that apartment I bought was not just a backup plan. It was a promise. A promise that no matter what happened, I would make sure they were safe. Because that is what family really means. Not the family you are born into, but the family you choose to be. My parents were in their late 60s when Emma destroyed everything. Now, they are in their early 70s. Healthy, happy, secure. They have a beautiful home with river views. They have friends and activities. They have a son who loves them and a future without fear. Emma is in year 2 of her 6-year sentence. She writes letters sometimes. My parents do not open them. Maybe someday they will be ready, maybe not. Some betrayals are too deep to fully heal. But our family, the real family we built from the ashes of Emma's destruction, is strong. We have Sunday dinners. We have honest conversations. We have trust that is earned every day through actions, not just words. I learned that blood does not guarantee loyalty, but it also does not limit love. My parents made terrible mistakes. They were manipulated by someone who knew exactly which buttons to push, but they owned their mistakes. They apologized. They changed. They proved family is not about being perfect. It is about being willing to grow. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is choosing to move forward despite the pain. Truth might take time, but it always surfaces. The people who truly love you will fight to believe in you, even when everything seems to prove otherwise. And sometimes, protecting family means preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. That apartment was my hope, my backup plan, my promise that love was stronger than betrayal. I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you trusted betrayed you? Where family turned against you? How did you handle it? Did you find a way to forgive? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and maybe helps someone going through something similar feel less alone. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about family, betrayal, and the power of truth. And please share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone struggling with family issues or dealing with manipulation. Your share might be exactly what they need today. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your own family journey, you find the strength to stand up for truth, the courage to forgive when it is deserved, and the wisdom to know the difference. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and remember that sometimes the family we build is stronger than the family we were given.